Have you ever stopped to think why, even though they work hard their whole lives, most people never get rich? What's more, why do some people seem to attract wealth as if it were a natural consequence, while others stumble through life? The truth is harsh but liberating. Wealth has never been a game of luck, inheritance, or talent. Wealth is a construct, a mental and operational engineering that almost no one has taught you. But I'm going to show you now what you've never been told about how to really get rich. Get ready. This truth may change the way you see your entire life. When I founded my factory, I had nothing but an obsession: absolute efficiency. Every part, every movement, every decision had to have a purpose. No waste, no distractions. That is the foundation of wealth. Building productive systems that transform effort into value in a continuous, predictable, and scalable way. While most people spend their lives putting out fires, those who get rich operate like a machine. Logical, disciplined, and with a long-term vision. The first point you need to understand is this: true wealth does not begin in the bank. It begins in the mind. As long as you think like a survivor, you will only get crumbs. When your mind operates in scarcity mode, everything around you becomes an emergency. But when you activate creation mode, the world begins to reorganize itself in your favor. I saw this every day on the factory floor. Workers with the same tools, the same machines, but completely different results. Do you know why? Because some came to work with their bodies, others with their brains, and wealth always chooses those who think. Do you want to get rich? Stop thinking like a slave to time. Start thinking like a systems engineer. Those who live by selling their time will never be free. Financial freedom comes from building assets that produce value even when you are not there. That's how I created the assembly line. I didn't want to depend on a genius in every department. I wanted a simple, standardized system that any ordinary man could operate with excellence. That is the engineering of wealth, transforming complexity into flow, and that flow must continue even while you are sleeping. And here comes another truth that few have the courage to tell you. Most people don't get rich because they are afraid to think. Thinking is hard work. It requires confrontation, it requires choice, it requires responsibility. Most people prefer to repeat familiar patterns, old beliefs, and modern excuses. I have always said, thinking is the hardest work there is. That's probably why so few engage in it. If you want wealth, start by challenging every automatic thought that keeps you in the same place. Many say they want freedom, but they live like emotional prisoners, rich in anxiety, poor in discipline. This is absurd. In my life, I have learned that emotional mastery is an operational issue. You don't have to wait to be motivated to act. You need to act so disciplined that motivation becomes unnecessary. I never built empires on good days. I built them on routine, sweat, and rhythm. Discipline is the invisible gear that turns dreams into systems. And systems, my friend, are what generate real wealth. You also need to understand that wealth isn't just about accumulating. Wealth is about distributing well. It's about making money work harder than you do. Every dollar that comes in should be treated like a worker. It needs to have a function, a goal, a return. I paid my men well, but I demanded productivity. Because I believe that well-paid workers become consumers and drivers of the economy. This applies to you. If you want to get rich, you need to use every penny that passes through your hands wisely. Spend less on appearances and more on production capacity. Another thing they hide from you is that wealth is not about doing everything. It's about doing the essentials with excellence. I saw many entrepreneurs trying to embrace the world and sinking into debt. I did the opposite. I eliminated the superfluous, standardized the necessary, and scaled what worked. Simplicity is the most sophisticated form of wealth. The simpler your model, the stronger it becomes. Wealth likes order, focus, and continuous flow. Now let me tell you a secret that the economic elite knows but few dare to share. True wealth lies in productive automation. I'm not talking about robots. I'm talking about processes. About repeating what works without relying on willpower or talent. That's how I turned a workshop into an empire. I removed the need to think where it wasn't necessary, so that creativity could be applied where it really mattered. Automation is not dehumanizing. It is freeing humans to think on a large scale. And here's the key. If you want wealth, start now to build a system that works without you. Even if it's small, even if it's imperfect. But it needs to exist. Because that's the only way you'll get off the rat race. Most people work to live. The rich live to build. And that construction cannot depend on your time, your health, or your mood. It needs to run on its own like a well-oiled machine. Before closing this first section, I want to provoke you with a question. Are you operating as a system builder or as an exhausted soldier? Are you designing wealth with engineering or hoping for luck? The difference between the two is what defines who signs checks and who begs for credit. The truth that no one likes to admit is that most people want wealth, but hate the work required to build it. They prefer mental shortcuts, magic formulas, ready-made recipes, and they live trapped in the cycle of scarcity, waiting for miracles instead of building foundations. But wealth does not come from formulas. It comes from clarity, discipline, and the continuous execution of a functional plan. Want to know what separates the rich from the frustrated? The rich understand that everything is a process. The frustrated live on emotion. The rich operate with logic. They define, structure, execute, and adjust. The frustrated live by jumping from idea to idea, always starting and never finishing. I've seen this hundreds of times in industry. Intelligent men who never prospered because they lacked consistency. And simple, but consistent men who became rich just by following a functional routine. And here comes the second point you need to absorb urgently. Wealth is not about how much you earn, it's about how much you can multiply. I've known many workers who earned more than businessmen because they knew how to manage, invest, and grow. While the businessman increased his costs with every dollar he earned, the worker increased his assets. And you? What do you do with what you earn? Do you feed your status or build assets? Most people live as if every increase in income is a license to spend more. That's financial suicide. I thought differently. Every extra penny was reinvested in the system. I improved production, increased efficiency, standardized processes. And you know what happened? The system gave back multiplied. Because when you feed the right machine, it works for you. Another hard truth. If you need to be present for the money to come in, you are still a slave. It doesn't matter if you earn 1,000 or 10,000 a month. If you depend on your constant presence, it's not freedom, it's a well-decorated prison. True freedom comes when you build assets that work without you. This can be a company, a process, a channel, a platform. But it needs to be something that you structure once and reap many times. Now listen to this carefully. No one gets rich by running away from problems. Wealth is born at the exact point where most people give up. I always say that failure is just an opportunity to start over, this time with more intelligence. But most people, when they fail, retreat, panic, and give up. The rich adjust, adapt, and try again. And that's why they get there. You may not have capital, you may not have support, you may not have an education, but if you have clarity of vision and an obsession with efficiency, you can build something greater than any diploma can promise. I myself started out taking apart watches and fixing old machines, but I saw beyond what my eyes could see. I saw systems, I saw the future, I saw impact, and that is the third secret of wealth. Long-term vision with daily execution. Do you want quick results? Great. But understand that quick and lasting results only come from smart execution. There's no point in planting beans and expecting oak trees. The right seed requires the right time. What's more, it requires maintenance, productive patience, functional perseverance. Wealth is like an assembly line. Each piece fits together with precision until the whole thing works like an orchestra. But there's more. The fourth secret they hide from you is this. No one prospers alone. Wealth is a team game. You need to build with good people, delegate with confidence, and automate with clarity. I never wanted to be the smartest man in the room. I wanted to be the man with the most efficient system in town. And to do that, I hired, trained, and led people who were better than me in every role. And here comes a golden lesson: pay well. If you want a thriving business, treat your team as part of the engine. Motivated people produce more, make fewer mistakes, and stay. Undervalued people sabotage the system from the inside out. When I doubled salaries at Ford, many called me crazy. But that's what made my business explode, because every man there knew that his work was valued, and so he produced as if he owned the company. If you are an entrepreneur, understand this: profit is the result of a well-designed system and a well-cared-for team. If you are an employee, understand this: your value is not in your job title, it is in your performance. The person who delivers more value than they receive in salary never runs out of work, and sooner or later, they end up owning the system themselves. Now, I want to tell you a quick story to reinforce this truth. On one occasion, my assembly line stopped. Everyone was trying to understand why. Instead of blaming someone, I got straight to the point. Where is the bottleneck? We discovered that a part was misplaced at the beginning of the process. Small mistake, big impact. We fixed it, and everything went back to flowing. The same goes for your financial life. If something is stuck, don't blame the government, the market, or your childhood. Find the bottleneck, adjust the flow, and move on. And finally, I want to leave you with a final thought in this section. What system are you building right now? Or are you just surviving, putting out fires, trading time for money like a rat on a wheel? Wealth requires structure, and structure requires decision. You can start small, with little, but you need to start with intelligence, with vision, with consistency. Have you ever noticed that the longer you put off a decision, the more expensive it becomes? This applies to your pocketbook, your time, your entire life. Procrastination is an invisible tax that silently consumes your freedom. Those who postpone decisions live paying interest on indecision. And that is the fifth truth that no one tells you about getting rich. Those who accumulate unmade decisions accumulate operational poverty. I've seen it happen thousands of times. Brilliant men with magnificent ideas but paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes. And so they prefer the comfort zone of, one day I'll do it, to the discomfort of, it's done, even if it's imperfect. And let me tell you, wealth favors those who execute, those who test, make mistakes, correct, and adjust quickly, not those who think too much and do too little. If you want to prosper, you need to implement the mental model we used in factories. Act, measure, correct. Don't wait for the perfect idea. Don't spend forever refining the plan. Wealth requires real action in the real world. Perfection is the enemy of production, and production is what generates value. Remember, a good idea is one that is out there in the market, not one hidden in your notebook. Now listen to me carefully. Most people live with busy minds but without productivity. This is a silent poison. People who are emotionally overwhelmed, but with nothing really working. I say, clear your mind of what you are not going to do, and fill your life with simple processes that work every day. There's no point in wanting to change the world if you can't change your routine. Your freedom begins with small gears running smoothly, your morning ritual, your decision-making process, your consumption patterns. Every little habit is a piece of the puzzle, and when they all fit together, your life begins to produce wealth naturally. And here comes another truth that no one has the courage to show you. The world is brutally efficient, with those who are disciplined and merciless with those who are emotionally unstable. I don't care how much you've suffered. I don't care how much the system has hurt you. If you want to win, you're going to need to take control of your discipline. It's not about motivation, it's about commitment. Look, I wasn't the nicest guy, nor the most charismatic, but I was the most consistent. And consistency beats charm. Consistency builds empires. People are enchanted by talent, but it is discipline that builds the machine. And without a machine, there is no sustainable wealth. You need to become the chief operator of your life. Stop outsourcing results. Stop blaming circumstances. Stop waiting for applause. Wealth is invisible construction. Most people only see the nice car in the garage, but they don't see the early mornings spent fine-tuning the process. They don't see the sacrifices. They don't see the spreadsheets, they only see the end result. But I tell you, the invisible builds the visible. And you need to start building in the dark. And here's the sixth truth. You need to abandon the idea that money is the root of all evil. That belief is an anchor disguised as popular wisdom. Money is a tool, neutral. It serves the purpose of those who control it. In the hands of a fool, it destroys. In the hands of a visionary, it builds. I never sought wealth as luxury. I sought it as productive capacity, because with money, I could improve machines, improve salaries, improve the world around me. Do you want purpose? Build wealth. Because without resources, your purpose becomes just talk. It's nice to talk about helping others, but only those with structure can help. You need to be strong, not just in mind, but in your bank account. Because it's with money that you lift people out of the mud. It's with money that you open up opportunities. It's with money that you leave a legacy. But I repeat, don't confuse wealth with ostentation. Ostentation is the trap of the weak who want to appear strong. True wealth is quiet, stable, and productive. It doesn't shout, it delivers. It doesn't need to show off, it generates value. When I built my factory, I didn't do it to be admired. I did it to work, and working brought recognition naturally. You who are listening to me now need to stop seeking approval and start seeking efficiency. Because approval doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't support families. It doesn't create jobs. Efficiency does. It builds a reality where applause is unnecessary because the results speak for themselves. And now I want to give you some straight advice. As a mentor from the factory floor, create ironclad routines. That means creating patterns of behavior that work even on the worst days, on tired days, on days of doubt, on days of criticism. Because if your success depends on your mood, you're still an amateur. Professionals deliver results even when they're not having their best day. When I designed the assembly line processes, I didn't rely on the goodwill of the workers. I relied on the structure. Every screw had its place. Every gesture had its time. And that's why the system worked with anyone. You need to create that same model for your life. Automate the basics. Focus on what's essential and eliminate what's useless. And before I close this section, I want to make this clear. Wealth will not come through merit. It will come through building. You can be the kindest person in the world, the most honest, the hardest working. If you don't build, you won't have it. Period. And if you build, you will have it. Even if others don't like it, even if others try to belittle you. Results are not up for debate, they are built. I need to tell you this firmly. You were educated to be functional within the system, not to be free within it. You were taught to follow orders, seek stability, avoid risks. But no one taught you how to build. No one taught you to think like an owner. And that's why most people live repeating cycles, even with good intentions. Freedom begins when you change the role you play in the game. You stop being a piece and become the designer of the board. Seventh truth. If you want to become rich, you need to change the question you ask yourself every day. Most people ask, how can I earn more? That's limited. Those who build wealth ask, how can I create more value, automatically, scalably, and repeatedly? Do you see the difference? The first question ties you to effort. The second puts you in the engineering of the solution. And that change starts small. It starts with breakfast. It starts with how you organize your week. It starts with what you say to yourself when you're alone. You don't build wealth with strategy alone. You build it with habits, with structure, with quiet execution. I never trusted my genius, I trusted my system. And the system took care of the results. But that requires a profound break. You're going to have to give up immediate pleasure. The eighth truth is this. The rich endure the discomfort of the present in exchange for the freedom of the future. The poor do the opposite. They sell the future to relieve the present. That's why credit cards become prisons. That's why financing kills progress. Because everything that seems like relief today, without structure, is slavery tomorrow. Want a direct example? When I started out, I could have been content to sell a few cars a month, earn my money, and live well. But that was too small. I wanted a system that produced thousands of cars with quality and scale. So I gave up immediate comfort. I reinvested. I paid the price. I did what no one else was willing to do. And I created what no one else had ever created. Are you willing to pay that price? To give up today to live free tomorrow? Because wealth is renunciation. Renunciation of excess, of status, of distraction. Those who want everything now lose everything later. Those who build today always reap the rewards. And here comes another powerful cog, productive leverage. This is the 9th secret they hide from you. Wealth does not come only from your effort. It comes from the combined effort of systems, people, time, and capital. When you put these cogs together, you create an exponential force, a force that multiplies without depending only on you. The assembly line was just that, operational leverage on an industrial scale. I didn't want to depend on the genius of one person. I wanted a system where everyone played their part and the result was greater than the sum of its parts. This applies to your business, your routine, your life. You need to leverage. It's not about doing more with more force. It's about doing better with more intelligence. But be careful. Leverage without control is a disaster waiting to happen. The 10th principle that few follow. Everything that grows needs governance. If you expand without structure, you implode. I've seen many entrepreneurs fail this way. They grew fast, but they had no foundation. They had no processes. They had no indicators. And then the system collapsed. In my factory, every expansion was done with precision. The line only moved forward when the standard was set. The same goes for your life. Only increase spending when you have cash flow. Only increase responsibilities when you have control. And only raise your standard of living after you have secured your productive base. Want another secret? Money doesn't solve mindset problems. It only amplifies them. If you're disorganized with $1,000, you'll be disastrous with $1 million. If you can't say no with little, you'll be a slave with a lot. Money reveals who you are. It lays bare the system you've built and or the lack thereof. That's why true transformation isn't financial. It's mental, operational, disciplined. You need to reprogram your system. Think like an engineer of your own life. You need to sit down with paper, a spreadsheet, silence, and design. Yes, design your life as a product. Think of your income as a conveyor belt. Your time as a cog. Your habits as screws that need millimeter-precise adjustment. And then, my friend, the magic happens. You leave hope behind and enter production. You leave maybe someday behind and enter today is happening. You become the manager of your freedom. And when that happens, no one can stop you. Because while others react to life, you build what you want, with rhythm, precision, and vision. Before closing this section, I want to make one last mental invitation. Stop wishing for wealth. Start operating wealth. Desire is emotion. Operation is structure. Life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you are capable of sustaining. So the question is not, what do you want? The question is, what are you ready to manage with excellence? You've come this far because something inside you refuses to accept a mediocre life, and it is precisely this instinct that needs to be nurtured, not with cheap motivation, but with structure, clarity, and execution. Wealth requires you to stop being a spectator and become an architect. And that starts with the definitive decision to no longer accept a life without systems. 11th truth. Those who don't have a productive routine are at the mercy of luck. And luck is not a strategy. I've always said, don't trust chance when you can trust the process. My life has been driven by visible and invisible gears. The visible ones, production, distribution, sales. The invisible ones, discipline, clarity, vision. And they all turn together. You need to build your gears. You need to decide what happens every morning. You need to define what will never be tolerated again. You need to standardize your most important decisions. Because the More energy you spend deciding the obvious, the less energy you have left to create the extraordinary. It's not about working harder. It's about working with structure. Look, many people pride themselves on working hard. But working hard at what? At maintaining chaos? At putting out fires? Wealth requires a different kind of work. The work of building something that frees you. Something that grows without consuming you. Something that over time becomes bigger than you. And here's the 12th truth. You need to learn to step out of the spotlight. That's right. The true creator of wealth is the one who lays the groundwork for the system to operate without their constant presence. That's freedom. That's scale. That's legacy. I prepared myself so that my factories could run without me. Because wealth isn't a job, it's a structure that remains. But to do that, you need to break a dangerous habit, being irreplaceable. Many people cling to control because they want to feel important. But that kills growth. True leaders teach, document, delegate, automate, and then they step back to think about the next level. You need to stop being the bottleneck of your own progress and pay attention. This requires trust. Trust in processes, in people, in the system. And if you don't have that trust yet, it's because you haven't built it right. So go back, adjust, simplify. Because a good system is one that works, even with the bare minimum. And if it needs you all the time, it's not a system. It's dependency in disguise. Truth number 13. Your mind needs to become a command center, not a repository for worries. I saw many brilliant engineers fail because they were emotionally disorganized. And I saw simple men prosper because they had inner peace. A clear mind is the greatest asset of those who build. You need to take care of your mental health as you take care of your bank account. Sleep with clarity. Wake up with purpose. Silence the noise. Protect your focus as if it were gold, because it is. Every distraction is costly. Every useless conversation consumes productive energy. Every emotional outburst at the wrong time takes you off course. And here's the 14th truth. You need to decide once and for all that your life is a business. And businesses need a mission, processes, indicators, a growth plan, and constant analysis. If you're still living on the fly month to month and let's see how it goes, then accept it. You're still operating in structural poverty. Wealth is a method, and that method starts with powerful questions. What are your fixed emotional costs? What habits are costing you money? What assets have you built in the last 90 days? What return is your routine giving you? And more, who are you becoming by following this routine? These questions hurt, but they are surgical, because wealth has no patience for those who run away from the truth. And the truth is this: if you don't take charge, no one will do it for you. You need to become the CEO of your life. You need to sit in the leadership chair. You need to decide with logic, act with precision, and review with discipline. 15th truth. Wealth likes those who honor their word. Did you promise to wake up early? Do it. Did you say you were going to save money this month? Do it. Did you decide to start that project? Finish it. Because every time you break a promise you made to yourself, you destroy your own credibility. And without internal credibility, there is no external construction. I have always preferred a man who does the basics every day to an unstable genius. The world is full of wasted talent and full of disciplined workers who have succeeded. The East Ivy difference has never been talent. It has always been consistency. You need to become one of those. An executor, a builder, a process leader, a master of your own routine. And now, I want to pause for a definitive question. What systems are operating in your life right now as you listen to me? If you silence yourself right now, what keeps working? Your income, your projects, your learning, your health? If everything depends on your active presence, then you are still operating on effort, not structure. Wealth is not about having more, it's about needing less to keep growing. And that only happens when you build with intelligence, lead with clarity, and execute with brutal consistency. If you've followed along this far, you've realized that getting rich has never been a matter of luck, inheritance, or divine gift. It was, is, and always will be a matter of building. Practical, daily, disciplined building. And that building is only possible when you finally accept that no one is coming to save you. No one will do for you what you refuse to do for yourself. 16th and final truth. Absolute responsibility is the price of complete freedom. From the moment you decide to build wealth, you lose the right to blame. The government, your family, the economy, your education, none of these are excuses anymore. Because now the main variable is you, your systems, your decisions, your ability to do what needs to be done every day. Do you want freedom? Then get ready to lead with weight. Because leadership is not about being admired. It's about being functional. It's about making tough decisions. It's about giving up momentary pleasure in the name of solid construction. I gave up many things, recognition, comfort, distractions, because I was clear. All of that could be bought later, with freedom, not with debt. And this is where many fail, because they want the bonus without the burden. They want the result without the process. They want the harvest without the planting. But nature does not forgive shortcuts. Neither does the economy. If you want solid results, plant solid foundations. Start with an organized cash flow. Then turn that cash flow into reinvestment. Build assets, automate operations, and never stop adjusting. Wealth is repetition of excellence. It's that simple. And excellence is not doing something brilliant once. It's doing the basics perfectly every day until the entire system runs on its own. That's what separates the free from the modern slave. The free build a productive machine. Slaves sell their time, their health, their lives, in exchange for crumbs. I never accepted selling my life for a salary. I created a system that multiplied my time. That amplified my efforts. That valued the collective. And that's how I built an empire. An empire that wasn't born out of genius, but out of mindset. And now I give you the last cog. You need to develop a long-term plan with non-negotiable daily actions. Most people live by fluctuating goals. I lived by fixed standards. Every day something had to be done. A screw tightened, an idea tested, a mistake corrected. Because every small action adds up to an unshakable result. You can start today. You don't need money, just determination. Grab a notebook, a spreadsheet, an afternoon of silence, and design your system. Where is your main source of income? How can it be automated? What are your operating costs? What habits sabotage your progress? And most importantly, what assets will you build in the next 12 months? And make no mistake, assets are not just real estate or stocks. Assets are anything that generates continuous value with little effort. It can be a digital channel, a sales process, a self-managing team, or a product with recurring margins. You need to think like an industrialist. Because those who build with an artisan mindset die slaves to their own talent. And for that, your first asset needs to be your new self. A disciplined self, a strategic self, a self without excuses, a self with the cool head to deal with numbers, and the hot courage to face chaos. This new self will be the command center for everything else, because in the end, that's what wealth is. You against yourself. Your old mind against your new mind. Your comfort zone against your unlimited potential. Your addiction to survival against the engineering of freedom. Now tell me with brutal honesty, which version will win? Because from now on, you no longer have the right to pretend you don't know. The truth has been revealed. The engineering has been exposed. The path is clear, and there is only one thing standing between you and wealth. Continuous action. Now, it's your turn to turn ideas into productive machines. Sign up and share this video with anyone who wants to build a solid legacy. Let's do this together. Because the world doesn't need more dreamers, it needs more builders.